One of our subscribers, Ren, shared this terrifying story with us. We're warning you, this story is not for the faint of heart, so let's get started. My name is Ren, and my friend's name is Elisa. We've been inseparable since our high school days, sharing secrets, dreams, and countless adventures. Elisa is the kind of friend you're lucky to have, caring, fearless, and always up for a challenge. We both decided to pursue higher education in a city far from our hometown, and that's where our thrilling story unfolds. Our new life in the city came with its own set of challenges. We found ourselves in a cramped hostel, a stark contrast to the cozy homes we had left behind. The hostel was an old, three-story building with creaky stairs and dimly lit corridors. It was rumored to be haunted, adding an extra layer of excitement to our college experience. Our room was on the third floor, at the end of a long, eerie hallway. Elisa and I often joked about the strange sounds we heard at night, blaming them on the ghosts. Little did we know that one fateful night, our hostel would become the backdrop for a terrifying real-life scene that would test our friendship to its limits. On the third night of our stay at the hostel, Elisa and I were awakened by a strange noise. It sounded like someone was scratching at the window. We both sat up in bed, listening intently. The noise came again, this time louder. Elisa got out of bed and went to the window. She pulled back the curtain and peered out into the darkness. She couldn't see anything. "Is anyone there?" she called out. There was no answer. Elisa closed the curtain and came back to bed. "It was probably just the wind," she said. But I wasn't so sure. The noise had sounded too deliberate to be the wind. We lay awake for a while longer, listening for any more noises. But everything was quiet. Finally, we drifted off to sleep. The next morning, Elisa and I told our other roommates about the strange noise. But no one else had heard it. We decided that it must have been our imaginations. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. That night, Elisa and I went to bed early. We were both tired from our first week of classes. I fell asleep quickly, but I was awakened in the middle of the night by a familiar sound. Scratching at the window. This time, I knew it wasn't my imagination. I sat up in bed and looked around. Elisa was still asleep. I got out of bed and went to the window. I pulled back the curtain and peered out into the darkness. I saw something move. It was a figure. A tall, thin figure with pale skin and long, black hair. The figure stared at me for a moment, then it raised its hand and waved. I screamed. The figure disappeared. I ran back to bed and pulled the covers over my head. I lay there, trembling, until I heard Elisa stirring. "Ren," she said. "What's wrong?" I told her what I had seen. She didn't believe me at first. But then she saw the look on my face. "Okay," she said. "I believe you." We spent the rest of the night huddled together in bed, too scared to sleep. The next morning, we told our roommates what had happened. But no one believed us. They said we were just trying to scare them. Elisa and I were both shaken by what had happened. We decided to leave the hostel and find somewhere else to live. We packed our bags and left that same day. We never saw the figure again. But I still think about it sometimes. What was it? And why did it come to the hostel? Elisa and I were both relieved to leave the hostel behind. We found a small apartment to rent, and we were finally able to relax and start enjoying our first year of college. One day, Natasha, one of our friends, came home from class and told me that something strange had happened. She said that she had found our roommate, Elisa, in our room, talking to herself. She was just sitting there, talking to herself, Natasha said. She didn't even notice me come in. I was worried. I knew that Elisa had been stressed about her classes or a tidally which happened in hostel, but I didn't think it was anything serious. Maybe she was just trying to study, I said. But she wasn't saying anything coherent, Natsha said. She was just mumbling to herself. I decided to go and talk to Elisa. I found her in her room, sitting on her bed. She was staring at the wall, and she didn't notice me come in. Elisa? I said. She didn't respond. I put my hand on her shoulder. Elisa? I said again. She jumped and turned to look at me. Her eyes were wide and her face was pale. What's wrong? I asked. I don't know, she said. I was just thinking. Are you okay? I asked. She nodded. I'm fine, she said. Just tired. I was relieved that she seemed okay, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Over the next few weeks, Elisa's behavior became more and more erratic. She would often disappear for hours on end, and when she did come home, she would be withdrawn and silent. One night, I woke up to the sound of someone crying. I got out of bed and went to Elisa's room. The door was open, and I could see her sitting on her bed, sobbing. Elisa? I said. What's wrong? She looked up at me, her eyes red and swollen. I don't know, she said. I'm just so scared. I went over to her and sat down next to her. What are you scared of? I asked. I don't know, she said. Everything. I put my arm around her and held her close. It's okay, I said. I'm here. She cried for a while longer, then she finally calmed down. I think I need to go home, she said. I agreed. She couldn't stay here in this state. The next day, I helped her pack her bags. We drove her to the bus station, and she said goodbye. I never saw her again. I don't know what happened to Elisa. I hope she's okay. But I'll never forget the strange and disturbing things that happened to her that year. Years later, I was still thinking about Elisa. I wondered what had happened to her. I tried to find her online, but I couldn't find any trace of her. One day, I was talking to a friend of mine who was a psychologist. I told him about Elisa, and he listened intently. It sounds like she may have been suffering from a mental illness, he said. Schizophrenia, perhaps. I was shocked. I had never thought of Elisa as being mentally ill. But she seemed so normal most of the time, I said. Schizophrenia is a complex illness, my friend said. It can manifest itself in many different ways. I thought about what my friend had said. It made sense. Elisa's behavior had been erratic and unpredictable. She had also experienced hallucinations and delusions. I still don't know what happened to Elisa. But I hope that she's getting the help she needs.